Welcome back, big data leaders, learners, and my dear friends to Insight Builder channel. Must have Spark DML commands for data engineers and analysts, solving common data analysis challenges in day-to-day life. We have been discussing, this is second part of a series of videos that I am making on solving the challenges that we face when working with new dataset, especially if you are a beginner. The idea is we already saw how to read the files, how to read the CSV file, especially into the Spark environment, and how to do selection on that particular file. Next, what we are going to do is we are going to handle the null values and the date column, date series, etc. Apart from this, this is the process that we will be following. So we will be using Kaggle notebook, and we will explain all the commands. Okay. The Kaggle notebook is already shared with you guys. It is available in the description of the videos. Description of this video, you can take a look at that, and you can proceed from there. The important point I want to highlight here is that, see, now I will tell you what exactly I did when I selected the datasets. First and foremost, I decided, okay, I am going to learn the commands that is related to selection and read APIs. So this is pretty common. I don't need to have any special dataset. Any of the dataset will be okay for me. But when I'm going to work with null values, date columns, and related functions, I need to have the columns inside the dataset which has null values, right? First and foremost, that is the requirement. And then I also look for the date format. It should be there, and it should be challenging also. The date format, regular date format is fine. You can use a simple functions and execute it. But the challenging date format is what you want. All these things was first decided, and then I was searching for the dataset. So the same thing I request you guys also to follow. See, at the end of the day, this video is only one of the so many videos that you'll be watching. The main agenda of this video, as I always mention, is that you can practice the Kaggle notebook, the dataset process. Everything has been given to you as a single package so that you can easily practice. All you need to do is go to this Kaggle notebook right now, click on it, and click on the description link that I provided to you, and you can start immediately practicing. From the next couple of seconds, I will be going into the Kaggle notebook myself in this video, and you can start practicing. So without further ado, let me exactly do that. Okay, and I am actually in the Kaggle notebook environment where I have already done a lot of activities. Okay, what I am going to do right now is that I already have attached the datasets here. So I am going to work on the dataset that is inside the DMART dataset. If you are new to Kaggle environment, if you are totally clueless about this environment around it, just sign up into Kaggle and start executing the stuff. There are some courses also. You can take a look at this particular link, and just follow along with this video. Okay, you will get some idea as I am explaining these things. The reason why I am using Kaggle, it's basically available for free, and you can use it. Everybody can use it. There are lots of competitions also. You can take a look at it, and there are n number of datasets. For datasets itself, I can take a separate video. So there is so many datasets in there, and you can actually pull down models also. So if you are into machine learning and artificial intelligence, you can pull down models also. Okay, so that is about Kaggle. Enough about that. Let us start working on getting the dataset. So I need the dataset with null values. I need the dataset with date columns. And this particular dataset, if you actually click here, so if you are asking me, okay, how did you find out, Kamal, that this particular dataset has all the null values and date column? Very simple. All I need to do is just click on it in Kaggle environment. It will get opened. And at the bottom you can see that the ID order. So you see the date column here, and you immediately see it is not just the date, it is with the time. So, and also it's not full time stamp. So this is it's kind of a truncated timestamp. It doesn't have a second. Can you see this? I think this is the maximum zoom I can accommodate for other things. Anyway, I hope that you guys can see it. And also, if I scroll down here in GMV, you see that there is empty location here. Okay, and like this, there are lots of empty locations in GMV. So we have our null value, right? So that is solved with the null value solved and the date column available, all we need to do right now is that we read this data set into our Spark environment. And for that, what we actually need first of all ensure that you go up into this in this notebook, and at the start, this is actually part 2 of the videos. So I was already working on part 1. And if you click on this, ensure that PySpark is installed and PySpark related commands are pulled. PySpark related functions and modules are imported. That is the most important activity that you have to complete, and then only you can execute the next thing and get the Spark session up and running. You don't need to execute these things. Okay, this is for the earlier discussion that I was having on select. Okay, all you need to do is just come down to the place where I am working on handling the null values. This particular path, if you are thinking, okay, how did I get it? Click on this particular small arrow here, and you go to this dmart folder, and if you click on this copy path file, you will get the path. So, and you can copy it here. I am going to use the separator as tab because that is what it is. And okay, these things you will not be able to find it out. Okay, see, when I am actually explaining these things to you, it is already fixed. The infer schema is kept to true, header is kept to true, and separator is kept to tab. But when you are actually practicing, when you take a new data set, so for an example, you decide, okay, Kamal, I am not going to listen to you, I am going to take some other data set inside. Okay, DVD rental you cannot take, it's a totally different data set. You come here and you want to work with financial finance and health, you want to try it, or you want to go here and try something else. So you want to work on, say, for an example, let us take calendar. Is very simple actually, it's only having 2 columns. You can try listings clean detail. That is, listings cleaned also is a very good data set that you can try. So if you want to try those things, it will be different. So ensure that you try those things and see what kinds of error you get. That is the reason why the data sets are there. The important point is not just practicing the syntax. The important point is that you practice working with various data sets and you become one with the data set. This is the first step that you have to take before you start doing any of the activity. The more you are comfortable with the data set, the faster you can use and solve the problems. Let us go to the presentation for a moment. Why? Because in the earlier video I had been explaining about the challenge solution approach. So the entire presentation and all my videos starts with the challenge, and then only I start deciding what to do with respect to that challenge. So this has helped me a lot. So when you have a challenge, you know what you have to solve, and then you search for the solution. In regular way of learning, what happens is you are given a lot of solutions. Like for an example, let me go to the browser once, and I will show you the functions. So if you go to the documentation of Spark, you will see that there are so many functions, right? And all these functions, say, let us take date and time step function. All these functions, why are they created? They solve a problem, right? You immediately see the description. This description is what is the problem it solves. And there is numerous. So you can scroll up and down and you will find a lot of things. However, how will you know which particular function to use? So first of all, you need to know your challenge, and then you need to come and search here. Okay, so I have this challenge. Are there any functions already available? And once you find a challenge, then you decide, okay, so I think that this function might be helpful to me. And then what you do is you go down and check the example. This is what I did. Okay, and I really urge you that do the same thing and experiment. Once you start doing this way, right, I really believe that you will have a wonderful time. Forget about whether you solve your problem or not. You will have a very good exploration capability and research capability, which is more important for anybody who is working in these days. So have that patience, have that target of solving the challenge. Okay, now the digression has been completed. Let us start with the activity. So I have already read it, and once this is basic command. Okay, I am reading it right now only. So it has read it and it has completed it. And you might be wondering, okay, Kamal, PySpark is from big data and you are running it in Kaggle. How is it even possible? PySpark is possible to run in your local machines also. There is no issues with that. And when PySpark is run in local machine, the Spark warehouse, if you are going to, we will be seeing it, the Spark warehouse gets created in your local file system also. Only thing is that you will not have certain abilities that Hive provides you or Hadoop provides you. Like most of the things, even partition you can do the various commands, functions that you are using with Spark SQL, but you cannot do distributed computing. That is the only challenge, because you don't have a distributed cluster, right? You can't do that. You can actually work on very big data sets also. If you have 32 GB of RAM, no one is going to question. The system is not going to stop you from using PySpark in 32 GB of RAM in local machine without any cluster. It will run without any challenge. However, 32 GB if you have, I would really urge that you take a look at this playlist, where you can build your own big data cluster, or you can actually try to work with the big data cluster that you can create it in AWS or GCP or Azure. Any of these things you better follow, and then you can execute these commands there inside the cluster. So any which way, at the end of the day, all you need to do is get the things executed. So whichever is possible, whichever is easy for you right at this moment, execute that. And then learn, because the time is minimal, right? The concentration span is also minimal. So immediately catch the moment and start learning. Okay. Now we are going to continue with the columns. So DMart sales has all these columns. So well and good, the columns are well formed. We see that there is no any gaps. It is properly snake cased. Right. Very nice data set that we have selected, and we immediately enter into one challenge. What happens is, in case of Spark, if I showed you, right, this particular data set. Let me actually, where is the sales? So I showed you that the GMV column has space, right? I showed you that there is a space here. There is null values, right? Sorry, 1 minute. I was seeing the null value somewhere. Okay, here I am unable to show you, but I will show it to you there. So what has happened is, when you actually read the columns inside the Spark environment, the space, that is the columns inside the CSV file with just a gap, is actually read as a gap. It is not read as null value. So I will show it to you in by doing a command right now. dmart sales dot show 20. Okay, I am not doing any select or anything. I am just using show 20, so it will work. You see that okay, so this is the problem. So if I do a show 20, and you see that there are lots of columns, and because of my zoom current zoom, this is actually coming in the middle. So what I am going to do is, I am going to use select command. So I am going to say select. I am going to only select GMV. Okay, so that it will be easy for you guys to understand. So I have selected only GMV, and immediately you see there is a gap here. Okay, so if I take 200 rows, you will see as I scroll down, you will see that there are some areas where the GMV is missing. You see this, right? So this is actually null value. Okay, but if you ask Spark will consider it as empty space. It is not saying it as null value. It is actually considering it as empty space, which is actually a string. So this actually becomes a problem, because you are looking for null values, but inside it is string. So it is a challenge, right? This is what I was trying to say. You might actually come up with a completely different challenge. This is something that I am facing. Okay, and this data set is actually throwing at us. The new data set will throw something else. So be ready for actually finally whatever your objective. So I want to work with null values, so I am able to work with that right now by using this replace function. So all I need to do is use dmart sales dot start. This will select all the columns, and I am blindly replacing. Okay, wherever I am finding a gap, replace it with none. So in Spark, none is null value. Okay, so once I execute this, I will get null values instead of the space. So if I now execute this, you will see that I will get null values. So you will see null here. So you will not see any space there. So it has been converted to null values. As I explained to you, I wanted to work with null value. So that is why I was able to go through this process, or else I wouldn't have been doing this. So like this, also keep it in your mind, take a challenge and then try to solve it. The null values we saw, we got it. The first command that you are going to use with null value is coalesce. Coalesce command, what it does is, wherever there is a null value in GMV file, it will actually convert it to the value that you provide. And here you might be wondering, okay, why did I put the double quotes around these 4 zeros? The intention was that I want to create, let me actually show you. So let me actually remove this double quotes and let me execute it. Once I execute this, you will see that I am getting only 1 0. But I actually gave 4 zeros. Why it is not coming as 4 zeros? In integer, in integer type, whether I give 1 0 or 4 zeros, it is still a 0, right? So Spark, what is the Spark interpreter doing is that, okay, you can give how many zeros you want, but I am going to give you only 1 0. So that was not going to be helpful because I want the GMV to be 4 digits. I had to resort to the solution again. So what is the solution? I am going to convert the value that I am giving as string. So if I give 4 zeros inside the double quotes, it becomes string. Double single quotes, it becomes string. So then you actually see the zeros here. You might be thinking, Kamal, won't this create a problem if I am going to run some kind of addition or some kind of a numerical activity? How to say? The idea behind this conversion is that GMV to me looks like a category. Okay, so giving it as a string will not impact the way I am going to work with this data set. This is the decision I made. But if this corrected GMV is going to be some kind of mathematical or numerical related column, then I wouldn't actually do this. Okay, but as I was telling you, each and every decision we take, each and every idea we execute has to be backed with proper understanding. When you are going to explain, like you can ask me hundreds of questions. All these questions I have to ask myself. The same way you also need to practice this. So ask questions to yourself that why am I taking a decision, and never ever accept your own decision if it is not backed properly with logic. Especially when you are working on data engineering, data analysis and data science. The more you are logically correct, better you will be able to safeguard your decision. Or else what will happen is you will take a decision and finally if someone comes and questions you, you might have to change it. Okay, and initially it's fine. As you are becoming more and more experienced, your decisions matter a lot. So keep this in mind and keep all the logic behind every decision you make. Okay. That is done. So we saw how to convert the coalesce. So I told you the difference also. So this is where I was showing you. Now coming to the next step. I want to actually use it as filter. So I want to find wherever there is a null value. I want to select that row. So I can use simply the where clause using the select clause. You can actually use another method also. I have already explained there is 5 different ways to do selection. So if you go up in the same notebook, I have explained all these ways to select, and you can use Spark SQL select also, and you can do all this activity. We will be seeing it in a moment. But before that, I want to go through this process so that we will understand it step by step. So this null is one of the functions that you can find it out. If you go to the documentation also, if you look at the functions, null semantics. So if you look at null semantics, you will get the actual functions that we are working on. So there are lots of functions that specifically work with null alone. So you see there are 9 different ways of working with null. So you must be understanding how challenging the data sets can be, right? This itself, reading all this itself will take a considerable amount of time. So what happens is you don't actually, read all these things in a single go. It doesn't actually work that way. You actually find the problem in your real world and you then come back to the documentation. As you practice more and more, you will find more problems and you will get mastery. So that is the process you need to follow. So the more you master, more you work with different data sets, more you face different challenges, the number of functions that you execute will be higher, and then your mastery will also be higher. Okay. Now that we have actually taken care of this, we are going to move the data frame to Spark warehouse. Till now, we have not moved the data frame to the Spark warehouse. You might be wondering, as I was already telling that Kamal can, the local environment can have a Spark warehouse. Actually, here you see this Kaggle underscore working actually has a Spark warehouse, and it already has got a database already initiated. So all the warehouse, the database, the tables, everything inside the Spark environment is it's a folder, and inside these folders there will be files. That is how Spark environment works. Okay, and most of the databases also works in the same way. Inside the database server, if you go and check the files, it will be files that is made of text. And just that this discussion came up, every programmer who actually wants to really excel in problem solving has to work with text related problem. So everything in this world is text, right? So whether it is audio, video, whatever it is, you can actually write it as text in some form or the other. You can write it as text in zeros and ones, or you can write it as a text in ABCD. So text is important. So with that said, let us actually execute this and let us see the database. So you see that select underscore db is also available here. Now I am going to I'm telling that, okay, I need to tell this particular environment that use the database, or else what will happen is by default the table will be written into default database. So I need to say SQL and say use database. I don't need to say use database, I have to say use select db and execute that. So now it will use select db, and after this I need to save this data frame into this table. So I say dmart underscore sales write save as table, and I am going to give overwrite, and the format is parquet. So I am going to execute this, and the moment I execute this, it will write into the select underscore db database. And once it is written, if I come here, you will see that inside it will take a moment here, because the processing in Kaggle for the folders actually takes more time. So give it a moment, and you will see that it gets populated here. Let us come back after some time. And next what we are going to do is, now we are going to start working with the Spark SQL. Now the table is ready. So I have made the table here, Spark dmart underscore sales underscore table. This is the table I created using this command. Now I can start using select. This is basic SQL that you have to use. I hope that you guys are master in SQL. I'm not going to explain these processes here. Okay, I'm just selecting all the columns. So I will get the output here. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select where GMV is null. Okay, so you see the GMV is null. So this is how we can do that. The act of deciding that I want to work with null values had led me to work on various commands that I can do with null values. So the same command I can use it with this var function on the table directly, and here data frame directly, and here the same var function I am using it on Spark warehouse table. Right, let me actually go here, let me see whether it is up and running. So we see the database is there, but the tables are taking time to populate. Anyway, that is where is done. And next what I am doing is I am coalescing. So the same activity that I did at the top, I am doing it here also. Right, so you see the output, and now I am counting. So there are two ways to count. So first way is to actually use select count star, and then we count it, and you see how many number of rows are there. It's almost 1 million rows are there. 1,048,575 rows are there. If I don't use limit, so here everywhere I am asking only to specifically show the number. So I am telling only show me two numbers. So if I execute this, it will only show me 2 rows. So whenever you are selecting, ensure that you give limit. If not, what will happen is, in case of big data, if the file is very huge and if you don't limit it, the entire rows will get populated, it will slow down your system. So sometimes it can even hang the system. Always keep this in your mind and in habit that you give limit. In case of count, it doesn't matter, because we are just counting it. And another way of doing the count is that you do all the activity and just give a count outside. So this will also count. So here I am counting the rows wherever there is null. So you will get that around 2326 rows are having null values out of 1 million rows. So seems like it's not a very big issue. So only a couple of rows are not having GMB values. So if you don't want those rows, you can remove it. So that will not make much of a problem to us. But yeah, still if it is less in number, it's better to fill it up. This is about null values, guys. You see that we have actually scratched the surface of what you can do with null values. I am just showing you how to select the database data set with the null values and work with basic coalesce and filter functions. But there are lots of other things that you can do with null values, because as you work with various group by clauses, union, we will be looking at it as we go forward in this series. I'll be working on group by clauses, order by, where, etc. And at the time null will still come. So how are you going to handle it at the time? So we will see that. At this moment, the intention is to primarily master the basic null discussion. Now that we have done, the next step what I am planning to do in this video is that we work on date format. So again, date format in Spark environment is the three things that you need to remember. Year is Y, day of the year, that is the date. Inside the date we give a number, right, for date, like 21, 30, 41, sorry, not 41, we say 18, right? So that date is actually D. And the month, so whatever we say, June, July, 03, 04, whatever we give, that is M. So we need to remember this format, because this is something that we need to provide whenever we are going to give the format for conversion. So you will see it in a moment. There are so many ways to convert from string to date format, and also date to string format. So if you come date time pattern here in the same thing that I was showing here, it will be shown to you, and there will be lots of examples here. But what you need to do is, don't come to date time pattern, go to functions. Inside the functions there will be date and timestamp functions. This will contain the various functions that you can work with date time. So out of these, this current date is important, date format is very, very important, date part is date part, date trunk. And because I am not going to explain all these things, I am going to explain only the date format. I am actually showing you that you guys actually can practice this also. The extract command here, and we have also now command, all these things. There are so many ways to work with it. So to date, this is one of the most important format you need to know, because what will happen is we are converting the string to date by giving a format. So this format is what I am talking about here. I'll be explaining in a moment. So first and foremost, I am going to execute select current date. So you have to give the selection command if you are working inside SQL. All this is going to be inside SQL. It's not going to be with the data frame. Okay, it is better to do it inside SQL. It is more convenient, because actually doing it in functions, you will see that it becomes complicated. Because what happens in case of using the select, right, you have to have one more function called as column, and then you have to actually close this like this, and then you have to give the functions to it. So you will see that the various functions are coming. And sometimes what happens is that the function that we want to execute may not actually work on directly on the columns. Okay, so for that you have to use a different syntax altogether. So all these things can be avoided if you are using it inside the SQL table. So that way it will be more standard for you guys. And anyway, you guys would have worked on SQL. So this way of working with date format will be more intuitive for you also. So this is the reason why I chose that to go with SQL method for discussing the date and time format. Right, so here is the current timestamp, and then we are also, so select now, all these functions we saw there, right? So all these things gives timestamp. So timestamp, this is a full timestamp. So you see that it gives up to microsecond also. So you can actually check it out. So if you execute this couple of times, you will see that it actually starts changing. So it will not be same. Okay, now comes before we actually start executing the date, we have to see how the actual function, how the actual date looks like, right? So what we are going to do is, anyway, we have the date here. We see that the date and the time has a gap here, and we want only the date. So we can use split part. So this is a string function that you will be using. So you must be immediately guessing it. So if there is a date and if there is a time, if there is a gap, so we are going to split it. Very simple. So first and foremost, we use split part for this. We give the column, we give the separator, and we give the index that we want. Unlike in Python or in JavaScript, we use number 1 to select the first one. So it's not 0. Okay, this is something that you have to realize that. And then we execute this, you will get the date. And this is still in string format. It is not in the date format that we want. Right. Next, what we are going to do is, this is where you see the actual power of SQL. So what we are going to do is, we are going to chain the functions like this. We are going to send the function into the function. So split part function is sent into the toDate function, and finally you will get a date output. So this is how the SQL is written. So if I have to make one more function, so if I want to say coalesce, so here if I give coalesce, this will still work. If I say coalesce, and if I say that if there is a date null value, I want to give a regular date. So for an example, I want to say 2022 12. So I want to give this date. Okay, if I give this value like this, then what will happen is, anywhere if the date is null, this date will be filled there, and then the split part will work, but the split part will fail because I have no split here. So I give a space here and I give a number. So I give a 12 noon. So I give this, and this will work on split part. So there will not be any issue. So if you execute this right now, it will proceed without any challenge. And moreover, there is no null values there. I'm just giving you an example. So here we see toDate, split part, and coalesce. All are how they are inside each other, right? Split coalesce is inside split part is inside toDate. This is how the modularity is ensured in SQL. If you try the same thing here, it will be extremely confusing. If you try the same thing here in where is that, in the data frame, right, by using select clause, it will be actually confusing. And you can try it out, but I would really suggest that use this SQL route only. And SQL route is much more comfortable also, and you will be writing the same SQL in many places, not just here. If you are going to use DBT, for that matter, I am not sure whether you guys have come across DBT. If not, then I will link the video of DBT here along with this video. Take a look at that. You will be writing pure SQL with CTEs, the common table expressions, and you will be using a lot of these commands there. And DBT, for that matter, interfaces with both Snowflake, Redshift, and BigQuery. So all of those things work with SQL. I suppose that using this method will be far more productive for you guys. Okay, so you saw how the toDate works. So we converted the string to date, and we have got the value. Next is, once you convert it, we need to actually create a new table. So that is the next step. So that is where you will face the challenge if you don't have Hive or Hadoop cluster that I will show you right now. So I am executing this selection. I am selecting ID order, all these things, and I am just showing it so that you guys can see how it is linked. So I see the date conversion here, and also the where is the GMV? The GMV, updated GMV here. So both the things I have put here right now. Next, what happens is, in case if I actually want to create a table, so if I say create table, and if I execute this command, what will happen is, it will actually error out. It will say Hive set the table will be created as there is no table provider specified. You can set the legacy here, and it actually fails. It says Hive support is required to create Hive table. Okay, so that is what the challenge. This is not the cluster environment. So if it is not a cluster environment, you can actually say create view. So if you create view, then it will work. Okay, so already there is a view, I suppose. Yeah, there is a view by this name already. So that is why it is creating this problem. Let me actually change the name. Tutorial. Okay, if I change this name, you can give any length name. So as of now, there is no any challenge. So this view would have got created, and then if I use select star from update DM sales, so this is still a view, but you can do the selection, right? So this actually brings this particular part of the video to an end. Okay, let us go to the PDF again. We have right now seen this part where we work on null values and where we work on date columns, but we have a lot of things to do with date columns, like series, sequences, etc. You can take a look at that earlier video also. I have discussed this. Now we will actually use the data that we have. We have already cleaned it, we have already worked with the date, we have already worked with the various columns. Now we will start working on aggregation, and we will start working on filtering, ordering, sorting, even go ahead and do partitioning, and work on case when. All these kinds of activities we can do on this data sets. This is going to be the next part. So till then, guys, first activity that you need to do is pull the go to this particular link that is already shared in Kaggle, sign up if you have not signed up, and make a fork of that notebook and start practicing. And once you practice there, once you are confident with this step, then come to the next video. I hope that you will actually, and do a lot of other practice also, because that notebook anyway, you can you have this notebook as standby, right? You can use that notebook however you want, your notebook. And as I told, real cluster is not necessary, so just relax and work in Kaggle environment only. So as usual, guys, practice, that is very important. And I hope that you like this content. Do leave a like and share it with others. Subscribe to my channel so that further video uploads whichever I am doing will directly come to your dashboard. So without further ado, with 4 words, I will take a leave. Practice, 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 practice.